Okay, this is going to be a quick overview of After Effects in my own words. I mean, obviously you can go to YouTube if you prefer to get like a quick overview. I just want to kind of give you my little rundown before your first project, just as I normally would if we were all sitting in class. But we're not, so I'm going to just kind of do it here. As you launch After Effects, you might get a couple of notices about, hey, this is new. You're welcome to read them or walk through them, or you can just close them down. When you start After Effects, you've got some options, and there's no completely right way to do things. It's just my recommendations based on my experience. So it says here, creating a composition from footage. A composition in Adobe, if you don't know, is pretty much the settings of your file. Okay, so if you filmed with your phone or you filmed with some random device and you're not sure of the composition settings, then I would definitely just start with a new project. Now, if you know your camera, if you know what you picked, like you know what you filmed at, then you are welcome to start a composition from the footage that you're going to be using. But for this case, I don't have any footage, and so I'm just going to start right here, a new project. Okay, and here again, I get the same kind of questions. Do you want to use it from footage or just new? And I'm just going to say a new composition on my own. All right, now compositions do dictate, if you look, your resolution, your frame rate, and then your duration. Duration is a big one. In After Effects, it can go on essentially infinitely in your timeline. But if you're used to timelines, you may notice that when you drop in footage, your timeline will usually default to as long as the footage. In After Effects, it defaults to whatever this duration is. So if I had a 3-minute clip and I left this at 30 seconds, it's only going to give me 30 seconds in my timeline. And it does that because After Effects is a massive software and really tries to condense what you're trying to do. So for the purpose of this right now, I'm just going to knock this down to about 5 seconds. There's my background color. I usually don't change the resolution because I don't need to. I have the ability to lower the quality on export, so I'm just going to leave it defaulted. Make sure I'm only at 5 seconds for right now, and I'm just going to say OK. Now it's going to populate my screen. All right, now I've got a working area. Depending on, let me cancel that, depending on the workspace that I chose or what the tools are. So let me just give you a quick rundown. Obviously, everything is up here in the tabs. So if you're a tabs kind of editor, come up here to the tabs, find what you need, work from there. Otherwise, you've got some tools here that do different things, whether it's panning, your cameras, you've got a pen tool, shapes, text, brushes, etc. You have some of those. Again, these are your workspaces, so if ever you're used to your workspace looking a certain way and you're like, hey, where did my tools go? You do have a list of workspaces. So if I switch to another workspace like Effects, you're going to see some things change a little bit. Okay, After Effects attempts to give you the tools that you need.
Sorry, you're muted.
So you'll see that the toolbars change. So down here you've got your timeline, and these are going to populate in a little bit. There's my project tab and my effects controls. We'll get to those. So here's your composition. This is what you created to dictate essentially the size of your video. So if you feel like if you look at the bottom, we picked 5 seconds, and there's only 5 seconds down here. Okay, it stops at 5. If I wanted more time or needed more time, I would just right click and go into my composition settings, and I can change this to whatever I needed. If I wanted 10 seconds, 10 seconds, and then it's going to give me now 10 seconds worth of timeline. Okay, so you can dictate it that way. All right, down here, nothing is going to populate until we start to add something, whether it is a shape or text or a null object. You don't actually have a working space until you have created something. Okay, and so I'm not going to use this video as your lesson. This was just a quick overview of your workspaces, your effects down here, which we're going to be using a lot, your timeline, your working window, and then these are going to be your layers once we get something started. So just to show you really fast what that looks like, At this point, I could come in here and do a new solid, and I could name it what I wanted, which is essentially your layer name. There's still the size, there's the color to start with, and say okay. And now I've actually have a working area. I've got something in my timeline, and this can be scaled and manipulated, and effects can be added onto it. So that is just a quick overview of After Effects. Most of your fun stuff is going to be right in here, and the first lesson we will be getting into this already. I just wanted to use this as reference if you've never launched After Effects before. This is just a quick overview of composition and getting set up. And obviously when you're done, you always want to save as, because you never want to be working, and then it disappears. It defaults to an After Effects project, so that way it'll stay in editing mode when you open it back up. And when you're ready to export, we'll mess with that when we get to the end of our first project. And so that's just a quick overview. And the next video will have your first project.